As you may know already with our podcast, one of the main things we want to do is obviously expand our platform to amplify other people's voices. We're really excited to do this interview series, and we're interviewing all different types of people. So obviously you've made it on to the next interview, which is exciting. So we just obviously want to start with, if you could just tell us a bit more about yourself, for the listeners, as well as obviously all of us, because I know Shreya knows you quite well. But it's great to just get more about you, who you are as a person, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, cool. So my name's Amanda, and I live in Scotland, Dundee. I'm currently working as a research and development scientist. I think I might have to do that again. Right, okay. So my name's Amanda, and I am currently living in Scotland, here in Dundee, and I am a research and development scientist. And so, I'm just excited to be on the pod. But that's pretty much a little bit about myself.
Awesome. Did you grow up in Scotland?
No, so I've only been living in Scotland for like 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you grow up in Scotland? My God.
What? Is that a long time? Honestly, that's like, actually, that's a long time. But
Before that, then?
I lived in Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was that transition for you?
It was really strange, actually, because I think the way I learned English was obviously like, I don't know, like the way you would learn Spanish and French here, like, so you've got like words, but it's not really sentences and stuff like that. So when I got here and the Scottish accent, I was just like, I can't do it. I can't.
I can't understand what accent you have as well. I'm like, because you don't have like a Scottish one, but then you have strong like Zimbabwean accents. I'm like, what is your accent?
I literally think it's just a mix of everything. So like here, people actually think that like I've lived in England or something like that, because they're like, we can't really quite pick out like where your accent is from. So I think it's just a mixture, to be fair. But
different twang.
Twang, I love it.
Got my own little, twist. But that's.
So adding on to Serena's question, obviously, like the English part and the barrier, that was a bit difficult. Was there anything else? Was it like what about the weather, the like culture? I'm sorry.
Dundee is actually
the weather is
in Scotland, so
I've never been to Scotland, but I'm terrified.
It's definitely, it was definitely a shock, because it's kind of like summer all the time, and then a couple of like wintry days, but it wasn't as bad as here. Like here it gets cold, and when it gets cold, it gets cold. So it's just like it was a bit difficult to kind of like adjust to in the beginning, but I think I'm really used to it now. Like, so I feel like living in Scotland just prepares you for anything, really. Like, I don't mind leaving the house when it's raining. I don't mind leaving the house when it's snowing. Like, I think I'm just ready. Whereas like, I feel like some people are just like, oh, no, I need to wait for the sun. And I'm like, you'll be waiting forever. So
I'm that person.
Well, I don't know if Scotland would be the perfect fit then.
So like, when you got there, did you notice, obviously, I'm guessing you were one of the few Black people?
Oh my days, yes. I was actually kind of lucky, because in my year, so I started secondary school, and I went into second year of secondary school, and I was very, very happy that in my year, there was one Black girl, so we kind of just became friends. Like, it was just that thing of like, oh my goodness. And funny enough, like, our mums actually knew each other beforehand, so my mum just kind of told me about her and stuff like that, so I was kind of like, I guess, in the know a little bit. But it was just like us for like the longest time, and then as time went, obviously, so like in fourth year, fifth year, a lot more Black people started coming into the school, but I think it was always a thing of, oh my goodness, like, I can't always relate to everybody. Like, I don't actually get the banter. I think that was another thing, actually. Like, I just didn't understand the sarcasm that, like, a lot of people like here. If you don't understand sarcasm, it's like, I don't know where you're from. So even just like understanding things like that, making friends, like, it's a little bit different. So like, even certain things that you don't think are would like affect your ability to make friendships, they actually do start kind of like creep up, sort of thing. So
barrier that way.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How?
I was going to say, I felt like that because I also came to England, and like when I was 11, 11, but I went to an international school, so it was a lot easier to adjust, but also like accent, I think I struggle with accents as well, because I'd have to like say something in my head just to prepare myself so I can say
yeah, you have to prepare.
Not because you don't know the language, but just like adjust to say it correctly. You just say, okay, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say that. I think that stayed with me for like a good 4 or 5 years. So even with friends, I'd be like, this is what I'm going to say in my head. Even the language that we spoke, and we weren't allowed to speak Nepalese in my school.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't notice any sort of, I didn't think, wow, this girl was foreign. Like, when you joined, I didn't think about you.
No, I was only allowed to speak English. So, but even then, I had to say in my head, which I think I realized it's not a normal thing.
Yeah.
So have you do you know? Because just in terms of,
I was just going to go down the route of identity in terms of like obviously being from Zimbabwe and being there for 10 years and then coming to Scotland and then there for another 10 years. Like, how do you identify, in terms of, do you say you're Scottish? Do you say you're from, you're Zimbabwean? Your identity in terms of, okay, you were only 2 Black people in the whole school, so like, do you have more Scottish behaviours, or you still maintained quite a lot of Zimbabwean culture in you?
I would definitely say that I am very Zimbabwean, just because, like, I think, obviously at home, like, I would speak my language, which is Ndebele. So, like, I never really kind of like brought English home. So it's like when I left the house, I would just like switch to English, and then when I came back, it would just be like Ndebele throughout. And obviously, I also got to kind of like know quite a few people that were from my country as well. So I think that kind of helped like maintain that side of me. Whereas I think if there was no community, I think I may have kind of like lost that a little bit more, because it's like there's only so much you can speak to your parents for, like, before it's like, okay. But yeah, so I think in terms of my culture, I've definitely been very invested in it, and even like with family and stuff, like I have quite a lot of family here, not in Scotland but like in England and stuff, so like we'll just like visit and stuff like that. So it just kind of kept that that bond with my country a little bit stronger. So even though I didn't know people outside of my family in the sense, I still had my family to kind of like fall back on, so that's been very, very helpful.
Makes perfect sense. I think that's important. I think
Yeah,
it's easy to lose touch, especially when you're so far away in distance from
definitely.
But yeah, it's really important.
And
I think language, sorry.
I was just saying, like, when you're young, you kind of want to fit in.
yeah,
Outside of so that you didn't have to like change yourself.
Definitely. And I think language is so important as well, and I think it becomes more important with age. So like, I think when I was like 13, I didn't really understand the importance of me keeping like my language kind of thing, but like now that I'm older, I'm like, everything's much funnier. And I just wonder, like, if I didn't understand my language, how I would communicate with my grandmothers and things like that. Like, you might take it for granted, but they're actually very important. So I think that's definitely an important aspect that I take from my culture. Yeah,
it's so good. It seems like you're really grounded in understanding how both kind of intertwine with you as a person, rather than being confused. Which is good. I was going to ask as well, obviously you said you were like you were very aware it was just you and another black girl. Do you feel like you felt that treatment from the rest of the school, or it was just visually you could just see that, but actually in terms of the culture you were very welcomed into Scotland and how you?
No, I definitely think I felt very welcomed.
That's
I think there were maybe like a couple times where I was like, oh, like I don't know, but I don't think I felt black in the school, and I think that
guys, we need to get to Scotland. Scotland, we've been doing it wrong.
Actually, like, the reason why I ask is like a lot of the time, like we've been asking questions, and you're like, a lot of what you've been saying is just positive. So I thought, let me just ask point blank outright, like, has there been anything? Because one of a friend of mine, she grew up in Ireland, and same thing. She was like, I didn't like experience any sort of racism really until I came to Reading, which is really multicultural. Like Reading is really and like she was like in Ireland, I was like she's mixed race, she's like the only person of colour really. She felt welcomed, she was like, it was fine. And then as soon as she comes to Reading, which is really multicultural, that's when she experienced racism. And I was like,
Interesting.
I do wonder though, to be honest, like I wonder if the more multicultural a place is, I wonder if that makes it a little bit more racist in a sense, or like people are a lot more brave. Because like I think of like London, and I think of like New York, and some of the experiences that people share. I'm just like, I would expect that to be like, just everything's just like all breeze, right? But you hear quite a lot of different opinions with that. So yeah, I think I definitely didn't really feel black in high school. I think I started kind of feeling black at uni. I think it was like around my 3rd year going on to 4th year. So in Scotland we do 4 years for most degrees. I think that's when I started feeling black, and then I felt even more black at work. so
that was perfect. The black at work.
Are you the only black person like in your team, or what's it like?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the only black person at my work. Yeah.
Oh, in the whole
the
whole workplace.
how many employees?
I honestly I don't know if I can actually like count how many people there are there, but it's sizable. It's a sizable amount. Like
Can I just ask, what was it that made you feel black at uni? Like, what were the experiences that were like,
I don't know. I think when you start looking at, for example, Afro-Caribbean societies, right, and you start realizing that the reason that they're created isn't always to just kind of like celebrate us. It's also because it's essential. Like it's actually essential for our survival. And so when you start thinking about why that is essential, you begin to kind of think, oh wait, like there must be some institutionalized racism that goes on, and like we feel that we have to do something about it in order for us to feel like we can be heard in a sense, because it's like there's strength in numbers, right? So if we have something of our own where we have the numbers, then maybe something can be done about it. And I think that's when I really just kind of like started noticing little things, and just like how like sometimes universities would respond to certain issues, and it's like, but that wasn't racist, or like, like when somebody says something, an experience that they've had, and they're just sharing what they thought of the experience, you're questioning it, and it's like, why are you questioning it, and why are you also very reluctant to speak up? Because if it was like a separate, like a different situation, you'd be completely fine with it. Like you'd be like, oh yeah, I totally understand. And it's like, what about me? Do you not understand? Like, so it's just like little things like that. And I think going off of university, I think with work, it was more so the feelings of being isolated, because like at uni you kind of have that support system. You might not rely on it or feel like you need it, but you just know that it's there, like at the back of your mind. Whereas now I'm like, I actually don't have anybody to talk to about certain things. And like, I don't know, like even with obviously the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, like with the time where a lot of the things were happening, like I just kind of felt like nobody cares. Like nobody cares in here. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's showing that, I don't know, just even any form of this is absolutely disgraceful, like anything like that. Like I was just like, I actually don't know what your opinions are, and that's kind of unsettling. Like
scary.
Yeah, it's very
Everyone's just going on as normal, and then you're there like, hello
this
guys.
is a monumental thing that's happening.
And then if you have someone to talk to, you're just there.
Am I just silly for even caring about this? Because it almost feels like you're in this bubble and everybody's just living their life, they're celebrating birthday, and the world hasn't stopped when the world should be burning, because it is. No, I totally get that.
Yeah, 100%.
I wrote a lot of letters to my chairman and my CEO saying, what the hell? That was my reaction. I was thinking, why is everyone talking about this? But
literally, yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably what it mostly is. Yeah.
Since you're a black female in a career that is very dominated by white males, and how do you, because I know you just touched on racism, but in terms of sexism in the workplace, in the field of science,
have you got any experiences? Yeah.
Actually, it's quite interesting because like in my department, literally there's like 2 or 3 males, and that's it.
Oh wow.
Everybody else is female.
living in a different world, guys.
Honestly, it's mostly females. But I think what is interesting is that they're usually like senior scientists or principal scientists, but they're not the managers, you know. And I think that's when it's a little bit like, oh, like this woman is perfectly qualified, why isn't she going for this role if it is opened for people to apply? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just like the hierarchy that you begin to kind of like see and observe a little bit of. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that's impacted your experience in your career so far and like your working life? Would you feel like you just like get on with it and it's had no bearing on you in terms of trying to, because I feel like, how am I going to word my question? Obviously, when like what you said about the hierarchy, I think is like across the board a lot of the time there might be a bit of diversity, but it's usually lower down the chain. And still when it comes to like the CEOs and the heads of places and management, it's white men. Do you feel like that has maybe affected how people navigate themselves in the workplace? Or do you think that's affected how you maybe think you could progress in a career? Or you just like, I'm going for anything, any of my goals, I'm not affected by the representation that I see and stuff like that?
That's quite an interesting question. I think for me, like, just because I'm starting out in my career, I don't think I've really necessarily thought about myself as a manager. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think if I did see myself as a manager, then I would maybe be a bit more pressed about it. But I think I'm kind of like looking at everything as like step by step.
Yeah.
So if I was like a senior scientist and if I was a principal scientist, I think maybe I would look into it a little bit more. But I also guess it might actually like affect me in a sense, just because it's like, if I'm just seeing a narrative that the males in the company are the ones that have the best shot, right? Like, am I gonna also try to like shoot? Do you know what I mean? So I think maybe it's like a subconscious thing that I haven't exactly explored, maybe because I feel like I'm kind of like far removed from it. Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe I am, but yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to say the only way to actually change that narrative is actually to own it. I still believe the only way to make it.
That's the thing.
You have to, even if you fail one time, second time, third time, you have to keep going. So that it's easy generation, which is so crazy because we shouldn't have to make these sacrifices because the other people aren't. They don't have to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's the most humbling thing. It's like, wait, so all of these things that I have to consider, everything that I have to think about, you don't have to. What? Like, and you're so blissfully unaware. And I think that's really interesting and scary to me, is that they think it's that easy. Because the amount of times I've gotten, I was telling Serena, I'm sure I've told you guys as well, like the amount of times I've gotten advice from like C-suite execs who are white. This is what they are. They're old, male, and pale. That's how they're described in the business. That is actually how they're described. Like, it's a thing. And a lot of exec boards are old, male, and pale. And they'll just be like, you know what, just take any option that comes your way. I kind of just ended up here. You don't have to worry. You don't have to like plan. It just happens.
Yeah.
I forget the day, like a senior, one of the execs, and she's a woman, and she was like to me, the rules are different for us. And I have never respected anybody more for actually saying that.
Point blank.
Because they are different, and they are going to be, and she was white, so they're even more different for me, and they'll be even more different for people than me. And that's the fact of the matter. And I would I think that's what we need to start doing, is that having more conversations like this, so we can actually be more honest about it. So there's almost a community we can actually listen to, and we're giving you honest advice, as opposed to just things that can be published in the Financial Times but mean nothing, right?
Yeah. But I think they're saying just go for it, like just try. I think for some people, it's literally just a privilege and just ignorance. Yeah. Because they've never had to navigate themselves through life where they're thinking about it. So thinking about all the different, like we had an interview beforehand, and she was saying she had an experience where she got turned away from a restaurant, and she was like, I had to think, was it because the restaurant was full, or was it because I was black? Like they haven't lived through experiences like that at all, even if it's as small as just being turned away from a restaurant. So when it comes into career now, it's like they don't understand that there are invisible barriers. That they literally
all they need is the accolades, the grades, and they're in. Whereas for us, we have to think, okay, how am I speaking to this person? You have to think, am I speaking to black? You know,
like is my hair okay today, or damn, I shouldn't have changed it.
We know there are so many other factors that could be our downfall in that situation. So we have to navigate it differently.
Even having opportunities presented to us, you know, they said just go for the opportunities. The opportunities that are presented to us is going to be much different 100%. Than the opportunities presented to them. And I guess what we need to be doing is finding those same opportunities, knocking at those doors, but then just stumbling into. We have to actually make a conscious effort to get there.
And I really respect what you're doing with the Redefine Pod. So we'd love to hear a bit more about what made you guys start that, you know, what the goal is. Just, I'm really interested.
So with the podcast element of it.
The whole project, the Redefine project. What was
so with the project, we're just like, you know what, we need to create something within Scotland, because we feel like no one really knows what Scotland is, even though it's in the UK. But also nobody knows that there are actually black people who live in Scotland. Not nobody, but quite a few people don't think that there's as many of us as there are. And so we just wanted to highlight like the talent that exists within Scotland, the talent that is the black young people and older people here in Scotland, and also to just like share information and resources. So we do that obviously through our social media platforms, but we also do that with our podcast, the Redefine Pod. So we have like guests come on and they speak to us. It's mainly just careers based, just so like how do you actually climb any form of ladder in any kind of career field, because like you guys have said, like it's different. Like you may have the same CV, but it's different, and we know that it's different. And so what better way than to get people who have kind of like done it before to just help guide other people that would do it after them, sort of thing.
Lead the way.
Yeah, exactly. And like obviously with it being in a form of a podcast, it just means that people can revisit it, listen to it again, come back to it, take some more notes, and just, you know, like it's a resource. So yeah, I think that's pretty much why we're doing it.
That's amazing.
It's really cool. It's important.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be then to young scientists or like, you know, young females listening, or like people who want to go into STEM? Because I think there's a lot of barriers there as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you can actually do it. Like, it's not as impossible as people make it sound. Like, it's actually not, it's not that bad. Because like people make it sound like you need like triple A's here and there, and it's like, yes, the grades are important, but also like your self-belief is even more important. Like, the reason why a lot of people don't go into STEM is because they just don't feel like they can do it. Like, they just feel like it's impossibly hard. You have to study like 24 hours in the day, and it's like, yes, you have to study, but it's not that bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is you've heard, it's honestly not that bad, and you can do it. You can do it. Yeah. And I think, yeah, literally just go for it. Honestly, just go for it. We need more of us in there. Like, we honestly do. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm the only person there, and I'm not saying that I want like 10,000 of us in a company, because it's like the population is not possible, right? But it's just like, honestly, we should be able to have at least 20 people at my company that look like me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's actually possible. And I think it's just like, yeah, go for it. Like, don't doubt yourself. And even if you do doubt yourself, still do it. Still go for it.
I like that.
But yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing, honestly. I think that's really, yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I like that.
Did you ever kind of, when you were studying and you obviously had that goal that you wanted to get to, and the vision of your career and your degree and stuff, did you ever doubt yourself and wonder, like, could I do it? Or with you?
Yeah, I did. No, honestly, university will try your life, like, honestly. And if you went through uni and you just thought this is easy, then wow, because I really did not.
You
What? Sorry?
That was me. Someone made me on university is hard. I'm just like, what? Really?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Listen, that's it. It must really be nice, because I can't relate. But yeah, no, like, I think second year I was like, I'm quitting. Don't want to go back. Don't make me go back. But then I was like, how do I say that to my parents? So, you know. But no, honestly, yeah, I think definitely second year was the year that I was like, yeah, maybe this is not it. Like, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I need to just like find something else, you know, whatever that something else is. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's time for me to find something else. But I think it was just like, I just had challenges presented to me, and that was going to be my scapegoat. It wasn't really because I wasn't interested in science. It was just because I just felt like this is too much, you know. And it's like, you have to push past your feelings of this is too much, because honestly, my dad and final year were like, oh, this is calm. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if I hadn't gone through my second year, I honestly would have just given up, and then I wouldn't have known that like my third and fourth year were actually going to be,
it gets
like,
better.
Yeah, like, it actually gets better.
Yeah.
But in the moment you're like, no, it doesn't get better. But it's like, even if that's what you think, you're still gonna age. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're still gonna age, and like, so what then? Like, you didn't, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's probably, yeah.
Amazing. Just a disclaimer, I think the reason I found uni easy was because grammar school in A-level scarred me. I think that was the worst period of my life.
Okay, yeah.
It's a breeze. Yeah.
Did you find uni easy as well? Not final year, but pretty like first year was easy.
Yeah.
I struggled with uni, don't worry. I'm still struggling now.
No, final year was hard. Final year was my hardest year.
I think honestly, when everybody was stressed in final year, I was like, nah, I'm calm. I was done with everything. I was honestly just, I was like, what dissertation? I've got it submitted. Like, I was just living my life.
That's good though.
Yeah.
How you approach it.
And if you're like just chilled in first and second year, then your final year is going to be a bit harder.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Then just thinking about university, because I was just thinking institutional racism. Do you know, like, because I was in the disciplinary committee for my university, and every black student that came in there for even like there was one, he was in his final year, and he had this one module, and one of his paragraphs, just one, was plagiarized, and he just said, I didn't know this is what I had to do, and they wanted to expel him. And literally, I will never. That's when I realized racism is so real. And it starts in groups like this with professors basically saying, "Yep, let's expel him."
Yeah.
And there was just this one professor who was fighting for him. She was like, "No," and I was like, "No, we're not going to expel him." But they all wanted to expel him for this one para of plagiarism.
How much of a percentage was that? Because
it was it was a essay only module. So that module was 100% just that essay. So people were like, oh, we could at least, like, he might fail and he can just redo it, but it'll be capped, so he'll only get 40%. But like, there were 3 professors who were all like, no, he needs to be expelled. He's had 3 years. He should know how to write an essay. He should know academic practices. And it was just her. She was the only one who was like, no, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And if he hadn't plagiarized for those few years and that was his first mistake,
why are you trying to investigate what's caused him to do that?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just get people who have such a, like, iron, stern approach to things.
Would they have had that same approach?
That's what I thought, because I was accused of plagiarism. I was accused of plagiarism in my final year.
Wow.
That was the most stressful time, and I was like, okay, not gonna get it done first. And it was like 4 of us. I did. It was 4 of us, and I will never forget. And I thought I should have known better, because I was actually there was no plagiarism. It wasn't actually plagiarism. But I just thought, how did this happen? But even if you say I didn't plagiarize, it doesn't matter, because it's unintentional or intentional.
Yeah.
So we went into this like what was it, like a meeting or whatever, and I was the first one, and I said, please let me go first, because I thought if anyone can turn this around, I thought it will have to be me. And my meeting was meant to be 10 minutes, it lasted half an hour, and apparently the 3 people after me, they were just like, yeah, I'm like, the dean was just like, I think it's the same story, it's fine. Like, it only lasted a minute, and I was still thinking, oh my god, like, I'm gonna fail this module. And then a week later, we didn't even get any penalty, it was warning. All 4 of us got warning for poor academic practices. So I don't know, but I think it would be a lot less severe. Yeah. I'm not even white, and it was a lot less severe for me. I didn't have to go to the panel. So, and it was final year, it was the same thing. 5 pages of mine were in red. It wasn't actually plagiarism, like that's what, obviously it wasn't plagiarism, but yeah.
My issue more than that is just that's how you deal with. Because if he, like you said, he was in his final year. So my issue with just everything is whenever people do things that are deemed unacceptable, like society's response to that is like, right, expel. Like it's like, why is nothing else being discussed? Why aren't we figuring out how we can support, or how, like, this person's paid how much money each year to study? Thank you, to study this degree. Why are we not figuring out more options than just straight away expulsion? I think
he had to redo the whole year
for 1 paragraph.
Because
that's not
okay. And I will never forget, they were all professors in there, and then they all had their Rolexes, and he was just like, I don't care, it doesn't matter why he did it, it is plagiarism, that's what we're here to talk about. And I just thought,
all subconscious bias though. They didn't even know it responded like that if you were to ask them. And if they were to look back, they'd probably think, oh, that wasn't necessary. But they don't know why they're doing it. It's all subconscious. They just see black and they're like, there's a problem.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Imagine guilty and the judge actually. Like, makes no sense. Absolutely crazy.
Do you have anything you want to talk about? Any like stories you want to share?
I didn't really have anything that I wanted to talk about specifically. I think I'd mentioned to Shreya like about imposter syndrome, but I think we may have kind of indirectly touched on that a little bit. But
we can touch on it. So when was the first time, because I'm still trying to remember when was the first time I experienced it. When was the first time you have you experienced imposter syndrome?
I think it was definitely I think it's more so like now that I am at work, and the fact that I can call myself a research and development scientist just sounds so Einstein that I'm like, oh my gosh. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like if Einstein was to be alive and they were like, all the scientists stand up, like I would stand next to him, and that just sounds so fraudulent. Like that just sounds like that's not real. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't actually deserve your place. So I think that's kind of like when I really just felt like, oh my gosh, like I don't understand why I'm here. Like I don't feel like I deserve. And especially with being in a position where you're new to a lot of things, you don't know a lot of things, you don't have the answers to a lot of things. So it's kind of like, well, if you don't have the answers to any questions that are being presented to you, really and truly, why are you here? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just been like a learning curve for me where I'm like, no, what this means is that I've never had to deal with this situation before, and we're all new at life. Do you know what I mean? Like no one's lived before and then been like, hey, let's come back and have a redo. Do you know? So it's like I can't expect myself to be perfect from the get-go, because I have to learn. And I think it's just giving myself the grace to understand that I can learn, like, and that takes time, and that's okay. And also for me to realize that it's not really helpful for me to have imposter syndrome, because it limits, honestly it does, it limits the amount of things you go for, it limits your progression, it just limits so much. So it's not really that helpful. So yeah, I think that's pretty much like my experience so far, where I'm like, okay, we're gonna need to stop this because it's really not helpful. Yeah, and I think if you want to be a person that like wants to kind of like help other people see the potential in themselves, it's a bit ridiculous for you to not see that potential in yourself.
Well said.
I think that's probably yeah. What about you guys though? Have you guys experienced it, or?
I feel like I have.
Yeah, you go. She's a managing director, for those of you who didn't know.
Well.
Yeah, sometimes I just like, I don't like, even if I'm getting like an Uber to the office and people are like, what do you do? I don't even like saying it. I'm like, I'm like, oh, I just like want to sound cute. It feels so weird, like, oh, I run the business, or I own my own. It just doesn't like actually make sense coming out of my mouth sometimes.
Yeah.
I completely experience that feeling where it's just like I kind of will try and downplay.
Yeah. Do you think it's like in the name of humbleness? Like, I don't know if
I potentially, yeah, but then I look at other people, specifically men, and I think they're so confidently.
I know.
Bullshit. They were confidently bullshit.
And I'm like, wow. I wouldn't even say like those people are really arrogant or confident. Yeah. Some of the people that I'm talking about, where I think like they're just confident in themselves and in the place that they're in and the position that they're in, and that's fantastic. That's not even a negative thing. It's more an issue with me that I'm like, I don't want to say, like, I don't want to say what I don't know. So it's definitely something I'm aware of and definitely want to work on. Being more confident with being like, I do this. Yeah, this is what I've done. Like, this is actually, it's actually not fraud. Like, it's what I'm doing.
Like, it's what happened. Yeah. And it's what's happening.
The managing director saying I'm managing director.
It's like, actually one. I think it's actually not anybody's fault. It's actually you're socialized into it. And as women, and as people of color, you actually have a double whammy. So women are less likely to do it anyway. Women of color are less likely to do it anyway, even further. It's not actually it's not on you at all. See, I was very old when I realized that not everybody thought the way I did. Because in my head, I went to an all-girls school all the way until I was like 16, 17, just under 17. And the smartest people I knew were women, the fastest people I knew were women, the strongest people I knew were women. and like all of that. So all I was surrounded by were just great women. And then like my mum didn't ever raise me as it was a thing of like in my house there was no such thing as, oh, I don't think I can do this, or like, oh, I'm not going to come first. There was only one option. It was you had to be the best. And it wasn't like, and I think that was me from young, like from 5, we used to have toppers list in my school from the age of 5 in year 1. So
very competitive.
Yeah, very competitive.
I actually love that.
Yeah. So and then we did things like value education every morning where we talked about selflessness and, you know, confidence and all of that. So I didn't realize that was a privilege until I got to like work, I think.
My kids to Nepal.
You should. It's a great school. But like, I didn't realize until I went to work, and then like people would just be like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Whenever people would ask me, I'd be like, yeah, I want to be CEO. That's what I'm going to be. And I didn't realize that it was abnormal to be able to not just say it, but confidently believe it.
Yeah.
And that's a position of privilege.
I think it's rare.
Yeah,
it's definitely rare.
Privilege, because if you look at people who've come from like, good paths and all of that, they will confidently say, this is what I'm going to do. It's not a thing of, what do you do now? Like, you don't hesitate. Where do you want to hesitate? Because you know. And I think that's what is so important. That all starts at school. If you're not given the chance, if your teachers aren't saying you can do everything that you want, if your parents are actually, they don't have the time, not because they don't want to, but they physically don't have the time to sit down with you every night and go through all your homework, teach you things 3 grades above where you are, you will never you can do that. So I honestly, it's a position of privilege, and education system needs to catch up, because you need to be taught a lot more than just GCSE and A level and things like that. You need to be taught confidence, and it starts from 7.
And also just like general like life skills, and there's so much more. I think, I don't know if maybe they expect parents to teach it, and maybe that's why, but like there's so much more that I think the education system could be doing to just create better like human beings and better equipped human beings
100%
around us. Just like basic things, like it's so off topic, but like understanding how mortgages work. I think that would be a great thing to teach in schools, because me personally, I'm not using pi ever again. I don't know for you guys.
You're like 3.14, of course.
Just things like that. I think it would be good to actually give people more of a variety. In terms of like actually, like for example, I work in sales, and one of the biggest things in sales is not just the sales skill, it's actually your attitude behind it and your belief system. And one of the things I'm always coaching my team on is mentality over matter. So actually in school, that's not really taught, it's all practical. None of it is actually, and I think that would have a direct effect on people's grades, is if they actually had the right attitude towards their studies, believing that they could achieve the grades that they wanted and all that sort of stuff. So I think we could shake it all up completely. We could start with Black history and then just, you know, go across the board.
Of course. And I think it's important for like the educational system to understand that these are actually future adults, because I feel like sometimes children are like treated as if they're always going to be children, and it's like we have to actually prepare them for when they are adults, because listen, we need sound adults to help. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like sometimes you're like, when it's okay. But what, sorry?
We're just giving you our tagline.
Unedited. No, I love that. But
not with adults, because you have adults trapped in children's bodies raising another generation, and you wonder why the generation is just not doing well. We're just not doing well.
But this is why I really appreciate, I don't think I mentioned, but I really appreciate is what Alice said. We had another lady on before, and she was saying how she learned so much from the younger generation, and I thought that's so amazing, because there are so many adults who have lived, like she's lived such a long life. There are so many adults who lived and they think they know everything, and they treat, and like you said, they're not treating children as if they're eventually going to become adults. They're treating them as you stay in your place and you shut up. Being an adult and being willing to learn from a younger generation and also, you know, mentor them and develop them is so much better than thinking like, the only thing I can explain it is like, has everyone seen Matilda?
Yes.
You know Mrs. Trunchbull, how much she just hates children so much. Yeah. I mean, there's so many adults like that. They're just like, you just stay in your, I can't believe I was once even a child. Like, there's just such a big barrier. So detached. And I think that's a big issue with the world anyway. Because obviously, like, what you said is so spot on. Like, children are actually future adults, so it's so key to actually think about that when you're educating them and when you're
I think why loads of adults don't want to take any knowledge from children is because they're not humble enough. They think, how dare you teach me? But I think a true world is that we're educated by everyone, not just children, but like everyone, people that you don't even have the same opinions with. You just sit and learn and just
I think that's what we're trying to do as well, like just having so many different opinions and perspectives on, because even just by hearing someone else's story, you can like literally learn so much. We didn't know that Scottish people weren't racist.
I mean, I'm not, that's too blanket a term, but
like when we were going to interview you, we thought like you were going to have like loads of negative stories, like Naima said, like we thought you'd have loads of, because our experiences have been different. So it's interesting to see like different perspectives. Even when we had Louise
that's what I was going to say. I had to give it to Louise.
Completely different.
It's very positive.
So just learning both sides of the coin.
Reading's the issue in some way.
Not even Reading. I think it's actually England. Louise was living in like up north.
England.
That's what I'm saying. It's England. It's not just Reading. It's like, it's because Scotland isn't England. Ireland isn't England. So what's the common denominator? England.
And the Europeans. This is where colonization was actually invented from the English Empire.
And even English and Irish people have their own beef. So
in conclusion,
and English and Scottish, obviously.
So obviously you're doing the Redefine Pod. You've got your career in science. What do you see yourself doing next?
I think honestly, I would love to have my own charity. Like, I know this is like very in the future, but you never know. So I think I'm definitely passionate about helping other people have access to things a lot sooner, if I can help anyway. Whether that be like resources, whether that be financial aid, like I just want to be in a place where I can do that for other people. Just because I feel like a lot of the times it's not really about how great a person is or whatever else. It's just about the opportunities that person had. And I feel like that's like the biggest thing, and that's like the biggest thing with a lot of things. And I feel like especially with being Black as well, it's like if we have the opportunities, do you understand the level of just wellness we would get to? Do you know what I mean? So it's just like opportunities. So if I can be in a place where I can provide opportunities for other people, then 100%. I think that's definitely what I see myself.
The ultimate goal.
That's amazing.
I love that. Makes me feel warm. Thank you so much. I feel like it was like I said, I just love the fact that we're able to have different people on. We're gonna let people know about the Redefined Pod. Make sure they're going to listen if they do want to explore more of a career into those sort of things. But thank you so much for obviously giving us your time in this afternoon.
Thank you.
Making it really relaxed and fun.
Really you know, the vibes, you know. So for the Redefine Project, you can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at the Redefine Project. And you can, I don't know, should I plug my own song? There's nothing to be plugged, but if you are also interested in anything STEM related, if you want any advice or anything like that, you can get in touch with myself at Amanda Mendy on Instagram.
Amazing. We'll put it in the description as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. It's been fun.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
We've just finished listening to Amanda tell her story. If you would like to hear your story being told or would like to contact us with your story via a blog or come on our podcast, find us at untiledltd.com.